Welcome back to the Hot Mess to Awesomeness podcast, a show all about inspiring smart, busy women to put their happiness at the top of their to-do list. Join your host and life coach, Dion Thompson, as she chats with amazing women who have figured out how to make their happiness a priority, and more importantly, what it's really like to go from hot mess to awesomeness. And now, on with the show.
Welcome, everyone, to the Hot Mess to Awesomeness podcast. I am your host and life coach, Dion Thompson. And as I've said, probably on the other 70 some odd episodes, I'm very sweaty. I'm feeling very dewy. If you're watching the video, there's a glisten here. Oh, Elena, my guest, Elena Sherwood, kick-ass songs, brought me back to a different time in my life. Sweet child of mine. Oh, hello. Who knew I would know all those lyrics still many moons later. And very excited about your second song, Cheryl, To Be Real, kind of your theme song. And we're going to get into that. Very excited to have you here today, my friend.
Thank you. My pleasure. Absolutely.
So I had the absolute pleasure of getting paired up with you in a networking community. Gotta love me some Zoom action networking groups, and absolutely fell in love with your energy and with what you do. Kind of a big proponent of like being real and fucking authentic. So when I realized very quickly that was your jam, I'm like, this is my person and I'm going to need to talk to her. And I'm very excited that you're here. So let me introduce you to the world, as it were, the world, because the world's listening to this podcast, but absolutely. So Elena has been a therapist for over 30 years and now settled in Ottawa with her husband, has set up a small practice. After years of intense clinical work, she shifted gears to create room in her work and life for her obsession with the word real. She currently runs empowering groups called To Be Real. Thank you, Cheryl Lynn, in that song, and is a fellow podcaster, and most recently released her first book, Greatness Finds a Way. So welcome, my friend, Elena.
I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here. Honestly, I am not just vibrating from our dance gig there, but I really was very much looking forward to being here. Thank you. Because I too fell in love with your energy and authenticity. So I thought, oh my word, this is going to just be amazing.
Yes. And I'm guessing the vibration of this particular episode is going to be here. Awesome.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
So like me, you have a background in academia. I don't know if anybody actually knows that about me because I don't often share that, but and you spent many years doing sort of some traditional work, therapy, and what the fuck happened? So
well, okay, it's actually all part of the story. So in my teens, I realized that after a terrible breakup at the age of 17, I mean, who does not break up at the age of 17? But to me, that was like the world, is when I realized that nobody was going to take care of me but me. Mm-hmm. I know, kind of sad though. Anyway, so then I started the trajectory of collecting all the tools I would need for life. I'm going to need a degree. Everybody says you're going to go hungry if you don't have a degree, so I better go get one. Mm-hmm. And then I worked a little bit, and then I went I didn't go straight. I worked for a little bit, and I thought, well, I mean, if I needed that one, surely I'll need another. Anyway, and then as the years went, it was so basically, I know this sounds a little bit kind of ridiculous, but being there in academia and being absorbed in that world, which I am quite passionate about, mm-hmm. but it also gave me a different place to be. Mm-hmm.
I can appreciate that. I mean, I love the world of academia. There's no poo-poo on that because it's fantastic. And I think that there comes a point when you kind of go, if you can't see me, I'm moving my head to another direction, but you're like, oh, I can look at it that way. Because, we get very, very contained in our narrative, in the structure and the function of our systems. And those systems work very well. They're very eloquent. They're very long lasting, hundreds and hundreds of years of it working for people.
Absolutely.
So what did you see when you took a bit of a perspective shift?
Well, so I'm going to dive right into my hot mess moment.
Good.
I was thinking about this because I have several. The very first one was a mini one, which is me at 17, realizing, my God, if a boyfriend can dump me, the world can dump me. So I need to find a way to make an income. So that was kind of the beginning of the crazy spiral of get. And what I didn't realize is the further in it I went and the more committed and driven I was in the career aspect of get. I honestly believed, seriously, all I really needed to do was be like skinny and externally beautiful. And if I had a really, really shiny resume that declared me as an expert, I would have it all. Pardon my language, holy fuck, I was the furthest I ever was from myself. So the hot mess moment came right down to, we just bought a big house and I had a good job and I had a thing, and I just had a visit with my dad who was ill. We were living in Alberta at the time, and I met up with some friends, and I had this huge thing when I got back home of longing for that life I had when I visited my dad. All my friends were there, everybody was there. And to me, it was like disconcerting. It was like maddening. What the hell is going on? That in my head, I really wanted that life. It's as if everything I'd done meant nothing. Like, I had an amazing husband. I had 2 beautiful kids. I had everything, but it was like this big, awful shakedown of everything I'd ever believed. Because there was my life, there was my father. He was still a little bit healthy, but at that point he was not quite confined to a wheelchair, but needed it. And I'd already lost my mother. And I got there and I saw all of my friends and I saw some really old connections. And I got a little bit, I think the word I could use is a little bit homesick. But what I didn't know is I didn't really know what home was inside. So down I went, not in a terribly bad way, because the beauty of it is I had learned a lot about this mental health stuff. And even I knew that even in my dark place of being, we just moved, isn't that number one stressor is moving? So we just had that and all that transition. And it was just a big, holy crap, what is going on? And so I was able to at least say, okay, your people have been there before, you know this. What do you always say? I always say, well, there's something deep going on. And so for the first time in my life, I embraced the stuff I preach. And I got myself a really, really awesome therapist. I've done that before and it didn't quite work out. And I had many excuses why. I lived in a small town and, in my head, well, nobody's here qualified to treat me. But that wasn't true. There were plenty, but I wasn't ready. And so I did kind of speed date one therapist that, see, I knew we weren't right, whatever it was. But at this point, I had no other choice but to face it. And so I dove in and got my shit fixed up.
I have to tell you, you're definitely not my first therapist with some shit. And
I'll
that,
do, just so you know.
Oh yeah, well, we of the collective human, we all do. But it was very much a theme of not seeking out the knowledge in which you had for your own personal use. And so, question, because this had arisen in a few other episodes with some other amazing guests. Tell me a little bit about the stigma and the fear around a professional seeking professional help.
Oh my word, it's huge. It's huge. Except now I realize, though, it's not as much out there as it is within all of us. And I was the number one. Not that I believed less of people, I didn't. but it's really mind-boggling, especially when you live in a small town. It could really, pardon my language, it can really fuck you up when you're a professional, because everywhere you go, your clients are there.
Right.
Now, I was always kind of real wherever I was, wherever I met. But in my head, I was thinking, oh, they're judging me. I'm sure they're judging me. I'm having a glass of wine. Are they counting how many wines I'm having? Are they going to watch me if I fall apart on the dance floor, just doing my thing? Like, in my head, they were bigger than they really were.
Right.
Until I got over my own mental thing about, we are all just people doing our best. And I had a psychologist friend who said he was living in Edmonton, so quite further away. And he actually has a practice, a group therapy practice that is only for a specific professional group, because that's how secret they feel that this therapy should be.
Wow. And I think, because again, this is not a unique experience. And I think it translates to a number of helping professions, that if I am seen to need help, then who will come and ask me for help? And if I don't have people asking me for help, who the fuck am I? And it really can drive this, again, this narrative, this experience of self. Who am I if I'm not? And if they see me in a whole other light, will I still be me? And so I love that. I don't love that happened to you. Don't, but I love that you had taken that experience and over time really landed on real. So tell me more about that transformation from nobody can know about my stuff to, well, here it is, everybody. I wrote it in a book.
Well, to be honest, it wasn't until I started writing it into the book that I found that cleansing stuff. Because I met with this amazing, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. All I know is I'd started a blog, and the stuff I wanted to write so much, but it didn't quite belong in that blog. And so somebody said, well, chat with this lady, because she's a publisher, mentor, whatever. And so I said to her, I don't know what I need to do. I know I need to write. And she said, the beautiful lady said, just write. Just bleed into the keyboard, because apparently that's what Ernest Hemingway said. We don't write, we just sit at the typewriter and bleed or something. Yeah. Well, I actually did a little post and I took it down, but it was like Ernest Hemingway saying, you just bleed. And I wanted to say, dude, I'm down 2 pints. Like, all told, probably 5. It's like, the Cullens are swishing right past me saying nothing appetizing about that one. So it wasn't until I started writing it all into the story that I realized that was holding me back, is I would be free when I told the story. And part of my hope was to liberate other therapists and other health professionals, or any kind of professionals who also had that thing, because it turned into a book with a big message. And so I cannot get over how releasing it was to press the end.
I think as a writer and as a true believer that all people are writers, and I dare anybody to challenge me on that. And because the power of that experience is so transformative, I feel it's almost like a birthright to be able to move through the layers or the shells that sort of accumulate around us. It is a magical way to make that happen. So whether you are writing so that others will read, or you are writing to process what you need to process, it doesn't have to be anything grammatically correct in order. It could be crayon on a post-it. Like, it still has that power. And I think that's phenomenal that you found that through the process. And I know that for listeners, whether or not they have a desire to write a book or not, there is magic in that experience. So thank you for highlighting that, because I want to scream that from the rooftops every frickin' day. Anyway.
As you should, because it's a very important message. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to comment on about the message, it is very powerful. It is very important for whether it be therapists or people in the mental health world or any helper type profession. Um, it helps to remind us that we are not alone. It through that power of story of allowing us to anchor ourselves so that we can find our own way. But I think there's also a really important impact that, not that it's a byproduct, but I'm looking forward to it, is the change from at an organizational level. Like there's a reason this is all fucked up. It's because organizationally and culturally, these are the norms, and perhaps patriarchal driven, and that sucks. And okay, let's shine a flashlight on that. But I think that it's this power of when people feel a connection and they feel the impetus to align themselves and make a change, if they're still in the industry, if they're still there in the profession and they're willing to tap into that strength of vulnerability, they're going to make a change. Like the ripple effect is that ideally we get to a generation of people that don't have to have this conversation, because all the professions are deemed valuable, and you being in that profession, you're still a valuable human no matter what shit you're also going through simultaneously. And I mean, it's been a long-standing thing in some different areas, definitely in perhaps like drug rehabilitation, where a lot of it is like when you've been through it, and then you're better to support others. Except when somehow you get a whole bunch of letters behind your name, and that's not true anymore. And right, so it's this disconnect that I think books like yours and people like you are helping to sort of reconnect the pieces and pull that puzzle back together. So fucking yay you.
Well, I hope so. It was I don't even know that I had an intent other than to be ridiculously authentic and ridiculously truthful. And I purposely didn't make it all about me, even if it was about me, because it really isn't. And one of the things I say, and I say this truthfully, is I feel like I gave up a piece of me to go into that, to be for other people. I know this sounds a little wackadoodle, but I just feel like the world needs something of this, and I'm happy to give this piece of me for somebody out there who might need it, because it's quite, for me anyway, it was quite a humbling experience to really face everything that I needed to face to write it.
So tell me a little bit about, because I know books don't write themselves in a day, and that to continue to show up to the page takes a significant commitment, and life is still happening, right? Like you still have to like do the laundry and cook your food and go to work and do all the things. So tell me what is it that you tapped into? What did you anchor to? How did you continue to stay focused on this mission and message, all while out there living your life?
Well, what did help in my case is the pandemic, because there was nowhere to go. So that sort of locked me into, okay, well, you're here. But even that aside, the things that got me through all the education and all the difficult government jobs and all of that was that just keep at it, just keep showing up, like don't give up. And that's the one that somehow I was able to use for a really good thing, to say, just keep doing it, it'll finish itself. And it did. So that's one of my strongest messages to anybody and everybody, is just keep showing up and have faith in what will happen when you do.
Love that. So what does real mean to you?
I've been fighting with this word in a good way. And so I've been able to narrow it down to a few things. Real to me means coming to terms, among other things, it's coming to terms with our own story and facing all of it, not just the stuff we really like. And no avoiding of, yeah, we're just going to forget about that part. No. It's embracing all that we are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the beautiful and the magical and the all of that. Because to me, you cannot be completely real. If we're just going to minimize that part of me, that's not really me. No, all of it is me. the train wreck that did some things, because whatever the hot mess, as you call it, the all of it, the great, the amazing, whatever, but all of it is when we embody everything and celebrate it, where it's not something that we should be embarrassed about or minimize. No, that little train wreck is also part of our personality. And it makes us beautiful when we do train wreck stuff that's really still an extension of our personality that we can't really deny.
I love that. I love that you use the term embody. I think it's such a powerful vision, and one that's, in my opinion, still a little bit underrated and not, I think, embraced and understood at the level that it's actually happening. Because that's the thing about embodiment. It's the thing about your body. It doesn't use words. And so you can't rationalize the shit out of it, although we try. But to be able to truly take in and not just think about your own thoughts, but acknowledge where they rest and what that feels like, and to own every aspect of you, including, that funky toe on your right foot, and your beautiful smile, and all of those things. I that to me really speaks to this idea of real, and being present and whole, and occupying and owning the space that you take up in the world. Fucking awesome. And now I think I mentioned this to you before, but I wanted to point it out because it made me giggle when you were talking about, or when I heard about your connection to the word real and how you've incorporated that into your work, into your branding, and all of those things. When I was in these very, very early days of, I think I'm going to be a coach, one of the first things I did was like, well, I guess I should name myself. Like, I don't know what my business is going to be, or and I've gone through many incarnations, but I put out to the world, Facebook, by the way, I'm calling that the world, but I put out to Facebook at the time. Is. Yeah. I'm like, what should I call myself? Like, I actually polled my friends, and somebody had landed on, you're the real coach. And because how I show up is as real as I can be. That really spoke to me, because in my very early days of sort of self-exploration and self-awareness, I read a book by Parker Palmer, and it was about living the undivided life. And I thought that was a fascinating concept, because I lived my life so compartmentalized and divided myself constantly. I was like, really? That's a thing? You can just be one person? What? So I made it my mission to live into this space where my visual was, if everybody I knew on the planet had come together into a room and I wasn't there, and they were each telling stories about me and how they knew me, they would recognize me in each other's stories, because I am undivided. And so this idea of real, again, really like gets me to the core, because I think it's such a valuable aspect of humanity that is being missed because of the constant conditioning and compartmentalization of self. So I can't say it enough. I love what you're doing and what you're sharing, and how you are representing the real community and real therapists. So tell me about that. What does a real therapist do? So you have a profession with like a body and you have to sign off and say you do stuff, but.
Well, okay, this is where it's a little bit dicey, and I am currently in unfortunately, a divided head state, because I am licensed in the province of Ontario under the Ontario College of Social Work and Social Service Workers, which I've worked very hard for, and I've always had to be licensed, and I'm very proud of that. It's not an easy thing to get, but that also comes with some restrictions, and above all, among other things, which I also embody, is representing them well and representing social workers well wherever I go. And so to me, sometimes I feel like I could still be realer, but I don't want to compromise something that might be viewed as unprofessional, because it's really that easy to do a little thing and somebody misinterprets it. And then suddenly I'm up in front of a board saying, you know, they want to take my license away. So to me, maybe it's because I've carried that so long that I'm still kind of, I do feel like that's holding me back a little bit. But that said, I think that there is always room for realness in our fullest capacity in everything we do, no matter what it is. Whatever, pardon my language, whatever the fuck I call myself. And I have a couple of clients that say, I don't really care what you call yourself. Just like, make sure you fit me into your schedule. I don't really care. You're a butcher, you're a candlestick maker, you're a consultant, whatever. Like, so I think we get stuck in labels, and I'm still a little bit stuck in labels. So that's the part I'm working through. But I do know that the realer I get, I feel like I'm just getting started.
I think that's, you perhaps are also holding the energy for so many of us, that we are just getting started and really tapping into being undivided, right? Being whole. And I know for most of my adult life that the whole, like, there's an emptiness, there's a void. I don't feel put together. I don't feel like all of me is here. And then when I start to say that out loud, everybody's like, yeah, hi. It's like, that's a, like, when I start to think about it, I'm like, oh, right. So let's stop it. I'd be all done with that.
My God, I love that one. I love that. Stop it, dude. Oh my word. He's in my head all day.
So slight inside joke. Elena and I had chatted before, and I had shared with her a video that was shared with me many years ago. And it's, so you can all Google it. It's Bob Newhart, Stop It. And it's an SNL skit, and it is hilarious, but it's very much about just stop it. And from a therapist, just stop it. Just be real. Stop it.
Get on with life. Yeah.
Do it.
I love him.
So, Elena, what do you have going on? So I mentioned in when I introduced you, you have some community, like a group going on.
Yeah,
tell us more about that.
Oh, thank you. I have a Facebook group called Let's Get Real, and it's free. It's private because, you know, that's just the way I felt like it should go. But again, it's free. And so if anybody has this little inkling for more realness in their life, that's the place to go. That's also where I would offer the first thing if I am offering anything. So what I am offering right now is a dirt cheap realness journey course. And it's only it says 3 days, but it's not 3 full days. I'm going to post something 3 days in a row. And so right now I'm funneling all the content for that. So my mission is to find as many ways as I can to put this realness stuff out there and get a realness movement going.
Yes, please sign me up. I'm on the realness train.
There you go. So I've got that, the coaching part, realness mentoring, that I'm also interested in doing. And I'm still keeping a very small private practice because they're there, and and I like them. I love the people I'm working with. So between that and the book, I've kind of let my podcast slip a little bit, but I'm now inspired by how many never mind. Okay, I think I may have hit 15, because I do it when I have an idea that hits me, and they're all very short. So that I've kind of let go. So right now I'm really just kind of trying to get the word out there about being real in whoever will listen to me. I don't think people realize how critical this is. I think it might sound like somebody just touting this thing that many people are on the bandwagon about. Except it isn't, because maybe everybody should be on a bandwagon about realness. Maybe everybody should be owning their shit and living the life they really, 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 really want. And maybe most of us don't even know we're not doing that.
Right. I think like with most things, it's fear. That's the state people come from, because in order to be real, you have to heal. And that can be very scary. You know, speaking with a client yesterday, she's like, I ain't opening that door. That door, that's a big, scary door. I'm like, I hear you. And it's the only way through. And so I appreciate that everybody will be stepping into this process in a time that feels right for them. And we are in a time of great healing because we are also in a time of great pain. And I see it coming. And I see more opportunities for people to make connections to their true selves, higher selves, call it whatever you'd like, their real selves, and having access to brilliant people like yourself who can also walk them through the healing in order to get to that space. Because you really can't do one without the other, because it's not going to come out the way you want it to.
Well, and the other thing, the really, really big lesson I learned in all of my journey was that I need to pay people to do the stuff they do well, because I had this notion that I'm a therapist. I should be able to self-heal.
Yeah,
I'm not a liver. I'm like, I mean, I have blind spots like everybody else. Why on earth would I think? And that's the biggest common thing that people say, I don't need a thing. I can do this myself. And we all hear it. You would go to the doctor if you were ill, but we overestimate what we think we are capable of doing, and thus denying ourselves of doing the things we do very, very well and love doing.
That is a very valid point. And not only do we overestimate, we underestimate what's actually happening, and then there's this massive gap that cannot be filled by ourselves. And it's so, of course, this podcast and most of my work is geared towards women. And I said this before, I will say it again, I will say it every day. I love Beyonce. She did us a great disservice by putting it out there that we need to be strong, independent women, because the implication is that we need to do everything for ourselves, by ourselves. And then, so those of us who are brilliant, educated people, we're like, well, I should be able to do that all by myself because I did this and I did that. And in reality, we need the people. We need to acknowledge our brilliance and then seek out other brilliant people so that we can all just be brilliant together. So yes, find your people, pay them, and get the shit done. Brilliant.
Bingo right there. That's it.
Yes. And that the adage goes, we hire people who we know, like, and trust. And so building wherever you choose to go to connect with a human and feel that the trust can be built via digital. Obviously that's before you actually chat with someone. But yeah, you go to a place where they're going to show up as themselves, which would ideally be a space like that. We'll see what the world goes.
Assuming we can trust everything we see, which we can't always.
No.
And so then I rely on, and this is something that I like, we all rely on our bullshit meter to say, okay, yeah, that's not adding up.
Right. And I think too, just to add to the whole, if I was truly stepping into my real space, doing that healing work, I actually become more attuned with the bullshit meter. It's when we are constantly seeking external approval, validation, that we have no concept of reality, because we haven't tuned into what our true knowing is. And so yeah, again, do the work, do the thing, make it happen. All right. So Elena, this was a lot of gold, and I'm so grateful to have you here. What is a little something you'd like to leave the listeners with today?
Well, I want people to really think about that word real and what it means to them. And I want people to think deeply about the words showing up. And so if you put those three together, showing up real, whatever state you're in, if you are in a hot mess state, if you're in an anxious, borderline panic attack state, show up in that energy anyway. Just show up. Show the fuck up.
That's a tagline. Love it. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for your energy and for such a great conversation. I'm so grateful to have you in my world. And I too have your book, and I'm really, really excited to dig in. So just so you know, I don't like to read my guests' books beforehand because I like to be like all raw and real in the moment. And now I'm extra pumped to go and dive in and connect with that. I mean, I did read a bit of it. I'm not gonna lie, because I couldn't stop myself. But anyway, so thank you for being with me today.
And kudos to you for doing all this for free, for the greater good, for all these amazing women that I'm sure would be why would they not? So thank you, because you're giving a great big gift to all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all the listeners. I appreciate you. I love having you here. Share this podcast with your friends. Let them know to be fucking real. And we will see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. Join Dion again next week to learn more about what you can do to go from hot mess to awesomeness.